Welcome to Meandering Molly. In this video I'm going to explain how we dropped Molly's mast early in the spring to carry out some maintenance, and then how we raised it again, ready for the sailing season. Molly's mast is pretty heavy, but it's an easy two-person job to lower and not too tricky for three people to raise again. I'm going to explain some of the pitfalls we overcame and the method we've arrived at following these experiences, and also the advice of others. However, if you've got any comments or alternative methods, I'd welcome a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe while you're at it. First, I remove the staysail, then hank the jib sheets, lower the jib to the deck and remove the furler from the bowsprit. I find it easiest to leave the jib lashed along the gunwale because of the fixed carbon fibre luff spar. The head of the sail overhangs the stern of the boat a little. Now for the mainsail. Raise the gaff a little and remove the lacing from it, and then the lacing around the main. The sail is removed, folded and stowed in a locker. Next job is to remove the gaff spar and store it out of the way. It's pretty easy to carry that on my own. The boom is heavier. I lower it onto the push pit, cushioned by a fender, and then unbolt the gooseneck, pivot onto the guardrail and take that away too. The boat is stripped of the rigging and the spars. The jibs are down and I'm about to lower the mast. I've got the help of my lovely wife of 30 years. Hasn't got fed up with me yet. There's time, yes. When we let the mast down, it's braced by the bowsprit, which I've got raised just below vertical. I've got the stays taut so that they will prevent lateral movement. The force is restrained by the water stay, and then I've got an additional rope to stop the bowsprit falling down if it comes off tension. So the way we're going to let it down is we're going to use the staysail halyard. Right, that I think is better than using the jib halyard, but we'll see. I've got the main sheet on the end of the bowsprit, between the top of the bowsprit and the halyard for the staysail. So the basic plan is that I'm going to ease the main sheet, but I'm not sure about the length. I'm not sure whether it's long enough. So what I may need Nikki to do is to ease the staysail halyard, and the mast will elegantly and gently lay itself on the push pit on that specially prepared bow fender. So that's the plan. Whether reality matches up with that, who knows?
So you're doing the lowering?
Yeah. The easiest way I have found of moving the mast fore and aft once it's down is to take out the tabernacle bolt and replace it with a rubber roller. That way the mast can be rolled forwards so I can reach the top of the mast. The mast almost fits within the length of the boat. I lowered the mast mainly using the main sheet, but it could all have been done more easily by gradually easing the staysail halyard, which is plenty long enough for the job. The 4-to-1 purchase of the main sheet is only needed when raising the mast. The dropping of the mast went really well. I had Nikki easing the staysail halyard, and then I eased the main sheet. The main sheet actually would have been long enough to do the job all on its own, and the mast came down very much under control, so I was pretty pleased with that. The only thing is that I didn't take the spray hood off, and when you let the mast down onto the push pit, it's actually resting on the spray hood. So that is not good. So next time I must remember to take the spray hood off, because it made it very difficult to get the bolt out of the tabernacle, because everything was a bit under tension. Anyway, lesson learned. but it came down safely and easily. You may be wondering why I've dropped the mast at the beginning of the season. Well, I've been waiting for some nice weather so that I can replace the wiring in the lights, which are all rotten. So I've got the mast down and I've rolled it forward so I can access the mast head, and I'm hoping that I can pull those cables through and replace it with new wiring onto the same fittings. Let's see, shall we? The easiest way to step a yacht's mast is to have it craned into position. Obviously the boat and mast must be transported to the yard for this, and whilst I've used a commercial yard to step my mast in the past, I want to be self-sufficient and able to raise and lower the mast in my own club, which doesn't have a crane, thereby avoiding the cost and inconvenience. As Molly, like many traditional style boats, is equipped with a tabernacle rather than having the mast step directly to deck or keel, I thought I should take advantage of it. Raising the mast is essentially the reverse of lowering, but quite a bit of force is needed to lift the heavy mast. The first time I tried it, it did not go well. I used the main sheet between the bowsprit and the halyard, attempting to raise the mast with the bowsprit stationary. It puts a lot of load on the halyard block and there's a danger of breaking the sheave. It's better to use the bowsprit as a lever, pulling it down from vertical to horizontal. Secondly, it's very hard to raise the mast while afloat, because even a slight roll of the boat as the crew shift their weight will prevent the mast foot from dropping into the tabernacle. To raise the mast cleanly, it must stay exactly on the boat's centre line. Having learned from these past attempts, this time I am raising the mast with Molly aground on our club's drying grid. Molly is on the drying grid. We had an early start this morning at 4 a.m. to get her onto the grid at high tide, and now the water's gone away, we can do some work. Now we're not on here to clean the hull, although it does need a clean. She's been in the water since last spring. We went to Holland, so she had quite a bit of time in fresh water, and she's not as foul as I thought she might be. There's quite a lot of weed around the waterline. Got an impressive beard over here, but I'm just going to check the prop to see what that looks like and give that a bit of a clean. But the main business is to get the mast raised. So I'll quickly do this, a bit of grease, and then we'll be on to the mast. The job needs at least 3 people. One strong person to pull the main sheet, or maybe 2 people on this job, 1 person on the halyard winch, and 3rd person to keep the mast on the centre line by pulling a shroud and to watch for snagging. The boat must be level and stable, because if afloat, the mast foot won't drop into the tabernacle and it will damage the varnish on the mast foot. I used a bow fender over the push pit with a couple of flat fenders on top to lift the mast enough so it doesn't sit on the spray hood. If it does sit on the spray hood, it's very difficult to get the tabernacle bolt in or out. Just before raising, check nothing has dropped inside the tabernacle, which would prevent the mast from going all the way up and or damage cables. It's easy for a tool or some other item to hide in there, which will jam the mast at an awkward moment. I attached the staysail halyard to the bowsprit end and main sheet from sprit bottom to an anchor point on the ground. The bowsprit must be firmly laterally stayed, with its top a little forward of the bow. To start, lift the mast by hand onto a crutch so that it makes an approximate 90-degree angle between the spars. If the sprit is too vertical, there won't be enough purchase to lift the mast. I use the jib halyard as an additional safety line, but it needs to be kept slightly slack or it will prevent the lift. I'm not sure it would stop the mast falling if the other line parted, but it's an easy precaution to take, so I did it anyway. Even if the boat looks level, a helper is needed to pull the shrouds to make sure the mast stays on the boat's centre line. Take care with the positioning of the shrouds, making sure the fitting where the top of the forestay attaches to the mast is laying correctly. Also, as the mast goes up, the upper shrouds have a habit of catching under the deck fittings for the lowers, so be ready to nip them out of the way. The main sheet will bring the bowsprit down to deck, but at this point the mast may not be vertical. At that angle, the staysail halyard can easily be winched in until the mast is vertical and the forestay can be attached. Once the forestay is attached, the mast is secure. Don't forget to check the mast rake as close to vertical as possible, but this is best done when back afloat. If you're still watching this, thanks for sticking with me. I hope you found this description helpful. As I mentioned, I've tried various approaches and this system works for me. There are other ways of mast raising, so if you have any suggestions, please share your experience in the comments below. Thanks to my regular viewers for continuing to hit the like button. It really helps to promote the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, please take a moment to click on that too, so you'll see when I release new content. See you next time on Meandering Molly for some sailing adventures.